Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got a gun on the table that's been on Hammer's list for quite a while. It's the PPQ Q4 SF. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. You'll find a link that you can sign up for Big Daddy Unlimited. They actually have things in stock and usually at a lower price than other places. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. And the SF stands for steel frame. And you saw the Q5 on a previous review that we did, which is basically a 5-inch version of this, and the standard polygonal rifling that you have in any PPQ. So let me pick this critter up. All 39.7 ounces of it. It's not a light gun by any stretch of the imagination, and it's a steel frame, not an alloy frame. A lot of the metal guns that you can get, even over the past, let's say, 5 years, have gone to alloy. This is actually truly steel, kind of like a classic 1911. It's heavy, but it feels right. It's balanced well. It's comfortable to hold. It's got some serrations or checkering here, and on the back strap. This is the pattern that you're now seeing on things like the PDP, this little kind of a diamond-y, pyramid-y pattern, flattened off at the top. It's a strong texture, but it's not aggressive. It doesn't tear up your hands. It doesn't feel like it's going to rip you apart, but it's comfortable. It stays in your hand, and it's not slippery at all. So it's really good balance of textures. It has the standard front and rear serrations that PPQs have had for quite some time. They're deep enough and kind of stand out enough to grip, but if you run your hand across them, they actually feel smooth. So you can grip it when you want to. It doesn't grip you when you don't want it to. 3-slot Picatinny rail, and it does have the serration across the top, which is a glare reducer, which surprisingly has been removed from the PDP. This particular gun is the 3-dot phosphorescent sights, which sitting here under the studio lights, they stand out. They're bright white. They really look really clear and easy to see. What I did find with them is they're large. And because they're large, there's very little black space around them. I actually found these a little hard to see at the range. I had a hard time kind of locking in on them and determining where the sights were versus the target. I would have liked them to just be a hair smaller, not pinpoint dots obviously, but a hair smaller so there was a little bit of black around it. So when you aimed it up on the bullseye, you could get that clear differentiation of the target, the ring around it, and then the sight. And we'll probably fix that. And it's easy to do. They are dovetailed at the rear, and then similar to Glocks and other PPQs, there's a screw that holds the front one on. But these are the factory sights that are available on it. There is a factory version of this that is optics ready, similar to the Q5, but this particular one is not optics ready. And on this size gun, probably wouldn't put an optic on it anyway, even if it did have that capability. Came with 3 15-round magazines. They're M series. If you look on the side of it, it says the M series. That's basically the M2, or easy way to look at it is the button release. The nice thing is, if you've got PPQs or PDP, really doesn't matter, and they're the button release with the M series magazines, they're interchangeable. So if you've got a PPQ, let's say, that you use for carry, polymer PPQ, or even the PDP, and you want this for range day or competition, all your magazines are interchangeable. And that even includes the factory 17-round magazines that would come with the Q5. They'll go right in there, and they blend in nice, and they work. So one thing that they did right on this is they maintained magazine compatibility back and forth. As far as operating the gun, it operates the same as the PPQ. So you have the split trigger for the inertial drop safety. You have the internal drop safeties. And one thing that you always wonder, especially when you've got a gun like the PPQ whose trigger is kind of a benchmark, did they ruin the trigger? Did converting it to a steel frame wreck the trigger? So let's find out. There's a little bit of take up, not a whole lot. Really short, crisp, nice break. There's the reset. A little bit of take up, just a hair of take up to get back on the wall, and then that short, crisp break. So the answer is no, they didn't wreck the trigger. It's a PPQ trigger, which really makes sense because the internals of this functionally is a PPQ. Really the only difference between this and a polymer PPQ literally is that the frame is steel. They have not ruined any of the ergonomics, anything with the slide, or the overall functionality of the gun. It's the same, all the way down to the magazine capabilities and compatibility. It has an extended slide stop, slide release that is ambidextrous. One thing that is different is the takedown. On this one, you lock it back and you flip this lever up, which is common on a lot of guns, versus the little things that you pull down on the PPQ. And that really is, I believe, just one of the few things that had to be different for the steel frame to work. The grips are replaceable if you choose. I don't know how many grips are out on the market for this gun yet. There's 2 screws you do on either side and remove it, but it does not have replaceable back straps like the polymer PPQs. However, these grips are contoured just right. If I turn it just right into the light, you'll see just a little bit of contour here, which matches the contour that you find on the polymer PPQs. There you can see it a little bit, just kind of shading of color is what you're seeing, but really that's the contour. And I tell you, you put this in your hand, close your hand on it, it feels good. It feels comfortable. It feels nice. It's nice, tall beaver tail that comes out so that you're not going to get slide bit. I think it would be very difficult to get slide bit by this. So other than having a little difficulty locking in on the sights, shooting this well is an easy gun to shoot well. It's heavy enough to come back on target. It's well balanced, so when you're moving it around, it doesn't feel flippy. It doesn't feel either nose or tail heavy. So even though you have the steel frame, same as the Q5, which is a longer gun, when they created the Q4 version of it, they did a good job of balancing it right so that it doesn't really, the gun doesn't want to drive you, you drive the gun. Overall, the dimensions on it, it's 7.4 inches long, front to back, including the beaver tail. With the flush mount magazine, which is the ones it comes with, it's 5.4 inches top to bottom, and it's 1.3 inches thick. It's not a big, heavy, well, it is heavy, but it's not an overly big gun, but it's not small either. This could be carried, when people carry 1911s. Honestly, that's really not what it's meant for. If you're going to carry a PPQ, get a polymer PPQ, carry that. It's significantly lighter, all the same capabilities and features. This would be an awesome home defense gun, especially with the 17-round magazines that are available for it. It also is a very nice range gun, and it's popular in competition, or becoming popular in competition. So one thing that you might kind of wonder is, why a steel gun? I mean, the polymer wonders are out. We've got little tiny things that are thin that hold 10 rounds. What is the attraction of a metal frame gun? Well, there's a lot of attractions. This gun here, the 6-hour P226, is still today, and this gun's been around for many, many years, is still quite popular. Now, this is an alloy frame, and I'm going to show you a couple other metal frame guns. That's one thing that's a little distinctly different. It's the only steel one, other than like a 1911, that are readily commonly available. One difference, take this P226, or the fact that even in the earlier concealed carry days, metal guns, this is steel by the way, that's why I did kind of make a mistake there. This little guy's steel frame. This was a carry gun at one time. You wouldn't carry anything like this these days because they're heavy, they're relatively low capacity, and there's a lot of things that you could do that are better than this for carry, but it's still a pleasant gun to shoot. And even as recently as a year or so ago, you had things like this M9A3 and this Beretta that are still being manufactured. This went into the military trials. The military was actually considering a metal frame gun. They ended up not choosing it. But overall, when you look at it, metal frame guns are not a dead issue. There's still a market for them. One unique thing, though, everything I just showed you was hammer fired. This is striker fired. I'm not going to say it's better or worse. It's just different. And a lot of people prefer striker fired. Things like this tend to be either single action only, like a 1911, or like this one, DASA, where you get a different trigger pull the first time versus subsequent times. This is going to have the same trigger pull from the first round to the last round and be consistent. From the concept of, I want a metal frame gun, and there's a lot of reasons why that might be true, but I prefer striker, or I carry a PPQ and I want my range gun or my competition gun to work the same, that's an option with this. There's just something about, whether it's this steel frame gun or something cool like this, There's just something about shooting a steel frame gun or a metal frame gun, things like the CZs, the few that I showed you on the table, that you just can't get that feel in a polymer gun. That classic metal frame, heavy, you can feel the mechanics of it because there's enough weight that it's really the slide that moves more than the frame of the gun. So you get more of a mechanical feel from them. There's just really something when you go to the range that you can't get with a polymer gun as good as they are. And I carry a Glock on a daily basis. And no matter what I've got that's nice like this, I'm still going to carry the Glock. It's light, high capacity. But when I want to go to the range and I just want to have fun, and I want to feel a really nice gun, I'm going to grab this, the Q5, one of those Berettas. I really like the Berettas. They're just really nice to shoot. So don't overlook these metal frame guns just because they're old tech. Now, unfortunately, they're a little on the pricey side. Most of the metal guns are a little more expensive. They're quite proud of this one. By the way, if I lock it back, you can see how easily it operates. This is $14.49 is the MSRP. Right now they're a little bit more expensive as with everything else right now. So I'm going to take this apart. I'm going to show you the internals. And as I mentioned, you lock this back as opposed to just pulling back on it. You do flip up this lever. You bring it forward. And you line it up so it's in battery and you pull the trigger. And I did find this a little bit twitchy to pull apart. To kind of play with it a little bit, wiggle it back and forth and wiggle the trigger. Should have had the magazine out, which the magazine in on this particular gun does not interfere with taking it apart. It still would have been a little twitchy like that. Before I pick up the slide, I'll show you the frame. You can see the frame is all metal, but if you look at the design of the fire control group back here, it's very similar to a polymer PPQ. There's nice robust steel rails rear and really long nice steel rails at the front. And then a really robust locking block. And then you've got the arms for the drop safety mechanism. So it has all the internal features of a regular polymer PPQ, which is made out of steel. A little bit of an insert here for rigidness. This assembly can be removed if you pull this pin out for repair or replacement if needed. So now I'm going to move on to the slide. And really basically this is just a PPQ slide. It's got the standard wafer spring that the PPQs have. It has a nice well-constructed barrel. Nice polished feed ramp. And polygonal rifling that you've come to expect in a PPQ. Of course, very well machined. That's something you can just really expect from Walther, is really clean, well done machining. And that extends into the internals of the slide. Striker hook back here. Up front there is the drop safety piston, which conceptually these have been around for a long time on various different guns. They all work basically the same. Some are at the front, some are at the rear. But just a well done, well machined slide. I'm going to put the barrel back in. I did notice on this one, it's a little bit tight. If you don't line the barrel up right, it's kind of easy to get it stuck. Put the spring back in, make sure it's centered. This one has a really strong tendency to want to self-center. Some want to wiggle around. This one you put it in there and it pretty much almost wants to center itself. Make sure that the lever is up. Slide it back, lock it back. Flip the lever down. And you're back in business. Really easy to maintain, easy to live with, just like a PPQ. A little different there, but procedurally it's a hair different. But overall, maintaining this, if you've got a PPQ, you're not going to find this any more difficult to maintain. And it's going to be just as reliable as anything else that you're used to with the PPQs. The entire line, even moving into the PDP, so far has proven to be quite reliable. So if you're kind of looking for a really nice range gun, a competition gun, metal frame gun, or even a home defense gun, definitely give this guy a look. It's a little bit smaller than the Q5, a little bit more manageable. Now, if you're looking for a carry gun, look at the Polymer Wonders. They're just going to be lighter and easier to work for that particular purpose. But everything else, other than price being a little bit on the high side, there's really nothing to not like about these. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, kind of everywhere. Thank you.